G'day guys, welcome back to the Fon Supercoach YouTube channel. Today we are doing a little bit of a midweek update. I've got some revised trade plans. We've got a bit of different news. So without further ado, let's dive into it. So I want to start with what my team's problems are at the moment. I think some other teams will have at least three similar problems to me. Well, not every team will have three, but there's three that are relatively common, I would say. And the first one there is Errol Goulden. So unfortunately injured. This stings for two reasons. So firstly, I thought owning Errol was a huge competitive advantage on non-owners. So in that sense, I am of the belief that a non-Errol Goulden owner has been bailed out a little bit by this injury, which absolutely sucks because getting a top 8 mid for 566k is an absolute steal. So it sucks for that reason. Reason number two, it's happened in round one. And that is only annoying because of opening round and the way that the buys work. So hopefully we get rid of opening round for next year. It sounds possible. But anyway, why is that annoying? Because there are a few premiums, particularly on this round 2 buy, that I'm quite interested in. So for example, if Goulden lasted 1 week longer, I could go to Max Holmes. I could go to Tom Stewart. I could go to Sam Walsh, Dan Houston. There's 4 options that I think are quite enticing. There's also other options that are not on this buy. So Finn Callahan, Ed Richards, Noah Anderson, Lockie Ash, all really good options. So Goulden coming or getting injured in round 1 as opposed to round 2, 3, or 4 really, really stings. So what would I like to do with Errol? So in the vacuum, I do want to get a premium out of Errol. I will go through some options to trade him later. I think if you have no cash, you're in a really difficult spot because you either have to hold. You can just go to Murdoch if you don't have Murdoch, which I think is a totally fine play. But you either have to hold or you have to sort of go to LDU. And I am not a big believer in Luke Davies-Uniacke. But hey, maybe this is the year that he puts it all together. So that's problem number 1. Problem number 2 is Hayden Young has just been ruled out for this week with a hamstring strain. Now, they're saying it'll be reassessed, I think, next week or over the weekend or whatever. I have zero faith that a Hayden Young hamstring strain, this is a guy with terrible hamstrings, is going to be a 1 to 2 week injury. So that means, in my eyes, it's 3+ and he's gone. The other part of that is we saw what happened to Cherry last year with that sort of hamstring niggle. We saw what happened to Tom Stewart with his, I think it was a knee issue. Tom Stewart killed my season with that knee injury. And Tristan Cherry's hamstring strain resulted in him scoring 40 less points per game, essentially. I don't want to see either of those situations for Hayden Young, so he's out of my side. Problem number 3 that I have is I don't have Milan Murdoch. Really simple, 99k guy, probably going to make upwards of 200k if we're being totally honest. He looked excellent, great contested game. I think he was getting some CBAs as well. I can check that. Here we are. CBAs. Nope, I would be wrong. But that's fine. He's going to make bulk cash. Really have to get him in. And then problem number 4, which is the more unique problem, is that I have Jordan Clark. Now, I think there's a school of thought that overreacting to a premium or reacting to a premium after 1 week is overreactive. I don't take this view. The reason for that is, since Fremantle changed their game style last season, Jordan Clark has gone at 95. That is not a good spend of 570k. I need 105+ from that. I don't like the role because he's not getting the kick-ins. I don't like the game plan at Fremantle. I'm getting rid of him. I will hold for a week, but he's on the chopping block next week. So, and then there's also Lindsay and Windsor. So I've rewatched 2 games this week. One of which was the Melbourne St Kilda game. Part of that was a Melbourne fan Nuffy rewatch. The other part of that was I really wanted to see how Lindsay and Windsor went again when I'm just purely focusing on them. So Lindsay, first of all, a lot of the kick-ins, so Salem took 10 kick-ins. A lot of those were when Lindsay was on the mark or off the ground. So I do think that Lindsay will generally have the bulk of the kick-ins. It was Salem's 200th as well. I don't know if that impacted, but it may have. But I do think that Lindsay will get more kick-ins. There was a little bit of chip mark at times during this game as well from Melbourne. I was watching the champion data guy, speak about it. Apparently they went 95% forward or something like that, which seems reasonable based on the eye test. But there was chip market points, and I do think that full pedal to the metal, fifth gear type gameplay was unsustainable for one, and two, really allowed by the way St Kilda was playing the game as well, where for some reason they were really confident with a shootout, despite having a relatively impotent forward line. So I think those two things contributed a lot to Lindsay's scoring. I was also watching Adam Simpson on, I think, SEN. I love listening to what Adam Simpson says. He's really intelligent. But he was basically saying a lot of the teams had that really fast mode, but none of them had the control mode that you need. And I think that is very applicable to Melbourne. Stephen King obviously comes from Geelong. Geelong very good at shifting into those modes. I think that mode exists. I think we saw a little bit of it in the intra-club, which we're going back a while now. But I do think it is a mode that is there, and that will obviously benefit Xavier Lindsay's scoring. On Xavier Lindsay as well, he was the best kick-in taker, I would say. His kick-ins generally didn't result in turnovers, whereas Salem's were particularly bad. I think Petty took one that wasn't good, and CJ took one that wasn't great either. So I do think the kick-ins will go to Lindsay. Windsor, I was actually really impressed with. There was a couple of terrible clangers and a couple of times where teammates are just missing him. He had 2 kicks inside 50 that were marked, where his teammates didn't register a score. There was a holding the ball where he just had no awareness of what was going on. I also think that with Windsor and Lindsay, they will benefit from having that one game under their belt. So I was really overreacting to this game, I do believe, saying that, the game plan won't work for fantasy scoring. I do think that Windsor and Lindsay can still go that 80 that makes them successful picks. So I'm holding on to them for now. Which takes me to, what am I doing with Goulden and Young, and how am I getting Murdoch and whatever. So the first trade that I was always going to make is this one. You can trade whoever you want for Murdoch, but he's coming in. So we'll take Goulden out straight away. That gives me 550k. Now, I want to move on Hayden Young because I believe it's a more than 2-week injury. So he goes next. Now, the question is, who do we go to? I spoke about Max Holmes in my video and that I would be keen to flip Jordan Clark to Max Holmes next week. That is still the plan. So I want a premium that is playing this week, that doesn't have an early buy. And I think there are 5 options. The first one is Luke Davies-Uniacke. I've spoken about LDU. I really dislike this pick. I've owned him before. It's very frustrating. So don't want to go there. My 4th favorite option, and this is going to be very controversial because I can see that he's heavily traded in, 12%, is Caleb Sarong. So I just want to go into this game really quickly. And I just want to show you some stats. So firstly, Caleb Sarong's had 108 fantasy, which is very unusual in this Freo system. If you check his Supercoach scoring, he has also scored 80 points in the second quarter, which means he was on for about 95 to 100. Obviously, players can go big in any quarter. Not reading too much into that, but there was some attention that was dropped at this point. He's had 12 disposals, 8 contested in this quarter. I'm still not a big believer in this Sarong pick. As you can see, there's 21 scaling there. That's why I don't like this pick. This score seems deceptive to me, and the Fremantle game plan. The third option that I think some people will be interested in is Zach Merritt. And my hesitancy to go with Zach Merritt is that I don't trust the coach. I strongly believe that Brad Scott has the least clue out of the entire AFL coaching cohort. And I don't want to bet on one of my players keeping his role when we've seen the coach has a tendency to shift him out of his role. So that's why I'm not going on Zach Merritt. I couldn't begrudge anyone for doing that. I think it's a strong mid-season buy. It is going to be a pod. He has really good scoring history. I just don't trust the coach. The second option that I think will be popular is to go to a ruck. I think particularly Luke Jackson, but I think people might be inclined to find cash for Gawn or Cherry as well. Just on rucks this week, a lot of them scored quite well. Grundy did not. He's one that's a little bit owned that did not score well. And neither did, what's his name? Darcy Cameron. How do I think ruck scoring is going to go? I think it's trending down. And my reason for this is if you look at the scoring of the rucks during these games, it doesn't seem that sustainable. So Tristan Cherry, I think, won his first centre bounce hit out, not hit out to advantage, hit out in the third quarter in a matchup, Dante Vicentini, that I am expecting to be fairly easy. So that's why, and he still only went what he was priced at. So that's why I don't like Cherry. I've had that belief the whole preseason. I think that he's hurt the most by the rules, given he doesn't get involved in transition and he can't jump at the centre bounces. That's my opinion. I know others disagree with that. Gawn, I also don't like. He's very similar to Sarong, where, and let's pull the stats up. He had a massive last quarter where he played 100% tog. So 91 tog for a ruck is extraordinarily rare. And he scored more than this. As you can see, the stats are wrong for this. There was some problem with the AFL stats. But I think he had about 70 to 75 points in the fourth quarter. Not sustainable. We know Gawn can do this, but it's not happening. He's not playing full tog in the fourth quarter. It's just not going to happen much. So that's why I don't like Max Gawn. Jackson, I think, is the other one that will really tempt people. And I'll bring this game up again. Do I already have it? Yeah, I do. This Geelong matchup, outside of whoever West Coast play in the ruck, whether it's Flynn, I don't know if BJ Williams is even still on the list, or, Cooper Duff-Tytler, whoever it is. This Geelong matchup is going to be the easiest. So Luke Jackson, I think, had 55% ruck contest. Worth noting, Shrek looked dreadful, very unfit. I do expect him to get more fit, provided he can stay healthy. And the ruck contests should increase, even if not by much, maybe 5 to 10%. But that's going to take it off Luke Jackson's scoring. Secondly, if you look at this score, he's had 22 hitouts, but 9 to advantage, which is, what is that, like 40% hitouts to advantage, which is totally unsustainable. He's had 18 contested possessions and 10 clearances. And I understand the disposal efficiency is low, but that's how we're getting these scores. And he has 27 disposals as a ruck part-time midfielder with a little bit of forward time. And as a midfielder, he has shown that he does not accumulate. So that's why I don't like Luke Jackson. I think this score is very deceptive for his scoring history. I still think I think a lot of the rucks are going to be quite close. I think the cap is probably going to be like 115-ish. I don't think they're going to have 120 type scores, particularly early. As the game gets more contested in winter, they will probably rebound their scoring a little bit. But I think early they're not going to score too well. So that's why I don't like Luke Jackson. My number one option, and this is where I'm going to go, is Jordan Dawson. He's one that I didn't even mention in my round recap video. But there are some nice things coming up, I think. So I did some research. And when I spoke about whether or not I would start Dawson, it was based on Perryman tag, which didn't eventuate. Still only scored a 91. This was the second game I rewatched. I thought Dawson was quite good. He just didn't get involved as much. Collingwood were really allowing Adelaide to rebound off halfback, which is why Miller and Worrell and Cook and a lot of these guys who were playing halfback and wing had heaps of ball. I thought Dawson was still quite good within that game. And I'm quite happy to still go here. Secondly was the Cats game. Now, I looked at this. He averages really high fantasy in these games, and he's not been tagged in them. So I'm kind of okay to go here still. Even though it is in Geelong, I don't love that, but it is what it is. Now, if you look at the fixture, where are we? Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the next 7 are at home. Dawson averages about 115 at home over the last 3 seasons. That is stronger than his away record by about 10 points per game. I'm very, very into this pick. The rules should help him as the game opens up more. He is a good contested scorer, but he also gets out on the outside and carves people up by foot. I thought in this game, he had a similar problem to Windsor where his teammates a lot of the time either missed the shot or they burnt him or things like that. I thought there were a couple of tackles he did as well that should have been rewarded as holding the ball that weren't. Not going to get into umpiring, not worth it. But I do think his game was better than this 91. He also did have that knock where he went forward for about 5 minutes at the end of the game. So I'm very happy to go Dawson with this fixture. 5 games in a row at home before Richmond and North. Love that. So that's where I'm going this week. that leaves me with one problem, which is Jordan Clark, which I'm going to correct in 2 trades next week. So the plan is to go Clark and Selwood to Dan Houston and a cheaper rookie. I need to get 130k from Selwood to make this work, to get a 119 rookie. I just got to make sure that I can actually do that. Let's filter by break even. Okay, so Carroll's obviously not going to be there. So Cook is probably the one that's there. There is Gibcus as well, scoring 56s, but this is like going from Selwood to Selwood, so I'm not massive on that. There is Doveston, but I don't love that. So, okay, let me have a look. Can I do this? Get a calculator up. All right, so it's 331k in the bank. So I'm planning to go from Clark and Selwood to Houston and Max Holmes. So this is 600k. What's Houston's price? Minus 431. Yeah, 431, 500. So I need 133k to Selwood to do this. Oh, I don't need a downgrade. I'm going up. Sorry, silly me. I should get 20k or 15k out of Selwood here. It does mean I'm foregoing Cook. I'm okay to forego Cook. His scoring history is not very good. And I think that Collingwood enabled him to score like that. He also kicked 2 goals, I think, or 1 goal, 1 or something like that. I'm okay with letting this go. I think he probably makes 120 to 150k. I think all my other rookies can do that outside of Selwood. I'm not overly confident in Sharp. I'm really hoping he's actually not dropped this week. I don't think he will be, but Gresham kicked 5 in the 2s and Kako's coming back from injury. Sharp's played half forward. I think that there is a strong possibility that Sharp gets dropped. Then I'll have to decide if I want to boost. And I don't want to, I can tell you that much. So that's how my thought process is for these trades. I think in a vacuum, if you have cash to get rid of Goulden, I went through the options that I liked. In a vacuum, if you have cash to get rid of Young, Murdoch and Tanner Bruhn. So Murdoch is number 1. You could hold for a week and get Tanner Bruhn if you like. I'm of the view that you might as well just trade out early, ideally to someone who's playing. Depending on how many problems there are in your team, you can just go Young straight to Bruhn and hold him for a week. Very unlikely Bruhn gets injured on the bye. Not out of the question, but it is unlikely. So that's what I think with Young. In terms of getting Murdoch, obviously you've got Young and Goulden who you can go down from. I think you could get rid of Sharp, who I think probably only makes about 120k for Murdoch if you wanted, and bank 60k. That could help you get Goulden up to a Dawson or a Merritt or someone like that as well. But other than that, I don't think there's going to be too many issues for teams to deal with. I think if you have McKercher, you hold for a week against West Coast. If you have Bergman, you probably hold for a week as well, to be honest, even though that doesn't feel good. But then you can go Houston next week, or you can go up to someone else. I should probably mention Worrell and Millerer. Collingwood enabled Worrell and Millerer to score. So basically, they kicked it down Worrell's throat pretty much the whole game. They really struggled to move the ball out of D50, and it was just going to Worrell a lot of the time. And Millerer, and basically what Adelaide would do is just transition the ball across. If they liked what they had, they would go. If not, they would transition it back. And Millerer and Worrell were getting a lot of those possessions, as was Braden Cook, which is why I'm a little bit hesitant on those players. I will get another week of data. If I like what I see against the Dogs, worth noting that the Dogs are not a great scoring team for halfbacks. That's Rucks. Let's go designated kicker. They're a green matchup. That's what I thought. The Dogs are a green matchup for halfbacks, so it's not going to be the best test for it. However, the Dogs are looking absolutely unbelievable at the moment. They've got highly skilled midfielders, so they're unlikely to kick it down Worrell's throat at the very least for the whole game. Do they press up? I'm not sure. Whitfield and Ash were both capable of putting up big scores last week. Obviously, Whitfield didn't. It's fine. So yeah, that's how I'm lining up this week. Let's get this on field. If for whatever reason Marshall doesn't get up, I think I'll take Lombard over Phillipou. And let's... what's this matchup? So... wing defense... what's Hawthorn like? Where are we? Not a good matchup. North also not a great matchup. I think I back in the mature body here. But I'm going to do this. This is fine. So that's how I'm going to line up for this week. Let me know in the comments what you're thinking of doing. Very happy to respond to people's comments and help them with their trades. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you are not rage trading, as tempting as it is. And I will see you guys for a round review on Monday night this week. So thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.